My name is Dom Douglas, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering for what seems like forever, but in fact it's only been on and off for about 30 years. With that comes an expectation that I'm the best player ever. You couldn't be any more wrong in that statement. What I do like, however, is having a lot of fun. Whether it be playing Limited, Draft, Commander, Standard when I get the chance, Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't matter as long as a good time is had. And with that, I have some opinions, not just of Magic the Gathering, but also video games, comics, maybe even a TV show or two. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. I want to welcome you to the Goblin Grenade Podcast. My name is Dom Douglas for Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel, and I'm going to start the episode off right here, right now by saying, leave a like, leave a comment. Heck, if you like, subscribe. It costs nothing. It just costs you 3 seconds to click a button to subscribe. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you want to interact, leave a like and comment down below and tell me how good or bad my opinions or takes are. I've been playing Magic the Gathering on and off for 30 years, which is a really long time. And because I'm recording this in the middle of this podcast, because as Editor Dom will attest, I forgot to do the opening for this episode. I was so excited about covering MagicCon Chicago stuff. So there we go. Post-Carnage Report, MagicCon Chicago. They had a couple panels, a couple big announcements were made, and I'm going to break it down for you right now in as little time as possible because I watched the preview panel. It was an hour long. It was pretty good. And then I watched scrubbed through the Here Be Dragons panel because they said there was going to be some Tarkir stuff in there, and there was only one Tarkir card. So thankfully, I scrubbed through it instead of watching it. But we're also going to talk a little bit about the first litmus test of the beta brackets that happened at this particular convention as well. I've seen a few things, but first things first, let's just get into it with the biggest news. I'm gonna say it right now. The last set was confirmed of this year being Avatar the Airbender. Magic the Gathering meets Avatar the Airbender, and that apparently is dropping November 21st. And I'm so happy for you Avatar fans out there. It looks like you're getting the special treatment. Final Fantasy is as well, but it looks like the Avatar set is going to be the Lord of the Rings treatment, if you will. You're getting red carpet rolled out for you, and I'm happy for y'all. It is not my jam at all. I am not a fan. I am not going to poo-poo on it or berate it or anything like that. As I just previously said, I'm very happy for the Avatar fans out there. Y'all are getting some much respect, especially if I have a feeling you're getting the Lord of the Rings treatment on this one, which isn't a bad thing. Lord of the Rings was heavily hyped, had tons of product, tons of support, and yeah, it looks like the Last Airbender fans are getting that. So that's end of the year, and it was kind of confirmed low-key with some clues and whatnot that they've given. But other than that, like, that was the biggest bit of news. That was like the big reveal at the end. And I'm saying it now because, as I said, like, Avatar has no meaning to me. It's not that I'm not going to appreciate it or poo-poo, as I said, on it, or yuck, you're yum, as the professor would say. But it's just not for me. And that's okay. Not every product is meant for me. This year is a clear indication of that. That being said, Tarkir Dragonstorm is coming out in April, and they did a big-ish reveal panel for it, because considering it is the next set that's coming out, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to Google that real quick as I vamp here as much as I can. Because I like the panel. I like the Dragonstorm panel. April 11th. It releases Dragonstorm. So basically, Innistrad already dropped. Aether Drift already dropped. Dragonstorm's April 11th. Final Fantasy's the 13th. Edge of Eternity's apparently is releasing August 1st. Marvel Spider-Man at some point And then the last Airbender, which they confirmed, was the 21st at least, according to the trailer they played. So April 11th for Dragonstorm Tarkir. And Tarkir is a wedge set. And that is 3 color sets. You're going to have 3 color cards. You're going to have 3 color combinations. You're going to have the clans back in. You're going to have the groups, the dragons. And Tarkir is a special set for me. Because it was the first big set. Big set where I just gotten back into it. And that is where I didn't have to have my hand being held to make decks anymore for me in Magic the Gathering, and I could actually make a deck without watching a guide on how to. And the first card that they revealed was Sarkhan, which was okay. Sarkhan's like the big dragon daddy of the set, but then they revealed Mox Jasper, and I already hate it. I don't like this card. My girlfriend is already probably pre-ordered it for her Tiamat deck, knowing her, and it's gonna go bonkers because this card is a Mox, so it's a 0 cost artifact, and it taps to add a color of mana to your mana pool, any color, as long as you control dragon. And she plays a dragon deck, a Tiamat deck. It's her favorite deck, and it got a big upgrade with this set. And it's also Mox Jasper is their headliner card. That also means it's going to get 18 different treatments and different printings, and it's going to have the regular edition, the retro foil edition, which is only numerical, a borderless, an alternate art, an alt art borderless, a dragon scale, a ghost frame. It's going to have like 18 different variants of this card. So that being said, then they announced basically a behold mechanic, which it was, I think, the Sarkhan. If you can make a treasure if you behold a creature and behold a dragon, and you have a dragon in your hand or on the battlefield. And my immediate response was, unless I'm missing something here, you're basically getting free gifts for playing anything dragons and or typal with no penalty at all. I don't know how that's going to go. Gifting a card was a detriment. The gift mechanic was a detriment. You either gifted an opponent a card or a food or a creature to block for what you're going to do, or they draw a card to replenish the card that you're going to take and whatnot. This just seems like I'm playing dragons, so I get free stuff. Unless I'm missing something. Then they revealed one of the variants, the Ghostfire variant, and I already said in the Sarkhan, which was the second card they announced. Jasper was first, and Sarkhan was next. And the Sarkhan, I didn't like the Ghost Frame at all. Sarkhan's a 1 and a red for a dragon with behold a dragon and whatnot. And when a dragon comes into the field, it becomes Sarkhan becomes a dragon till end of turn, or a copy of it, or something like that. Anyway, the Ghostfire variant, it looks blue. It looks like a blue card, and I don't like it. They showed other cards too in the Ghost Frame variant, and I just don't like this particular variant. It doesn't do it for me. So I think it's the first misstep of the set, if you will, because I just didn't like the style of it at all. And they said they didn't announce any of the mechanics either, which is odd because they announced a lot of the Final Fantasy stuff, but they didn't. I guess it's got to be story spoilers for some of the stuff that they didn't reveal. Trust me, they revealed at least one card from every with mechanics and whatnot, or like play styles of all the clans except for Teamer, and they said that's going to be later due to something that they can't explain. So what I took that as, Temur has a mechanic that is story-based driven, that closely is there story-wise. Like, it's a spoiler, and they didn't want to reveal it yet. But they did say there's no morph in the set, which morph came, or a variant of morph came from Tarkir, and they said there's just so much stuff that we did that morph just didn't make it. And I get it. I understand why. Like, honestly, they just did 2 different versions of morph, I think, in 2024. And so there's no reason to have the morph mechanic show up when you've already done it 3 times. Like, you know, how you printed 3 different commander decks with energy in a calendar year in a 12-month period. And then they also did say they weren't, on top of not, you know, saying any of the mechanics of the set, they did say the old clan mechanics in Fate Reforged, Khans of Tarkir, Fate Reforged, and Dragons of Tarkir will play well with the mechanics off of Dragonstorm. Then they revealed a couple cards. The 5 clans, there's Abzan, which is white, black, and green. There's Jeskai, which is red, white, and blue. There's Sultai, which is black, blue, and green. Mardu, which is white, red, and black. And then Temur, which is red, green, and black. Those are the 5 clans of Tarkir. And storyline-wise, the dragons are no more, and they overthrew them, but they opened up a portal and got 5 new dragon spirits, but unfortunately they couldn't close it in time, and thousands of dragons spilled out. Whoopsie. But Abzan got Skirmish Rhino, which is Siege Rhino's younger brother, and with the vehicle that just dropped in Aether Drift, the black and green one that when it enters, lose 3, gain 3. That looks like an interesting deck, because Siege Rhino, if you weren't there for Standard, even in Modern a little bit too, of Tarkir, the first go round, Siege Rhino was like the big bad. It was in every deck. It was basically what this version does is when it enters a battlefield, target player or opponent or creature or whatever, I'll have the cards up if Editor Dom gets around to it today. You gain 3 life. So it was like, it was the summer of Rhino, if you will. And now we've got his younger brother up in here. And then the Jeskai one was, they previewed Narset Waymaster, Jeskai Waymaster, and that looks like a very interesting play pattern that you would have to establish with this card. Because at your end step, you discard your hand and draw a card for each spell you've cast this turn. So either you want to dump your hand as fast as possible, get Jeskai on the field, or have Jeskai, or have Narset on the field, get Narset on the field, dump your hand, pump all the spells out as you can, and then just keep constantly refilling your hand every turn. Sultai got Tevla Balanced Scale, and it's basically graveyard. It was the commander card, and it's the graveyard recursion commander. But you get 2/2 zombie druids instead when a card leaves your graveyard. So the graveyard shenanigans is you fill your graveyard with creatures and you get them back onto the battlefield. Well, whenever you do that, or you get a land back, or you do a buyback spell or a flashback spell from your graveyard, you're going to get a 2/2 zombie druid. Then Mardu, we got Smile at Death, which was the tribute to Alicia, who died apparently. And when did this happen? When did Alicia, who smiles at death, died? Was it in March of the Machines, or was it in the aftermath? I don't know. But apparently one of Mardu's most iconic cards, and passed away, but they have a card, Smiles at Death, because Alicia, who smiles at death. So yeah, I just want to make sure that I've got all my P's and Q's lined up. I'm looking at the wiki now. I know Alicia, she rolled over the Mardu horde. And seeing her charge in battle was enough to make warriors who were out of the fight rise and enter the fray once more. Alicia is a transgender woman assigned male at birth and identifying as a woman. Their clan believed that a name was something earned by battle and glory. In a new timeline, Alicia abolished Mardu as part of the Khanfall of Tarkir, following Kolgan's invitation for the clan warriors to keep up with the dragon and her travels. Yeah, even the wiki doesn't even the wiki, and it's MTG wiki, doesn't even say that Alicia, who smiles at death, has died. But yet, I guess spoilers. Barking in the big chuck wagon in the sky, I guess. And then Teamer, they didn't even show a preview card for the Teamer, and that's the red, green, and black clan. They didn't show a preview of that, and that's why I was like, I think that the Teamer is story based. Would be a spoiler, if you will. Then they previewed the clan sieges. Now, sieges were in the previous journey into Tarkir, and it was Khans or dragons. And if you chose one or the other, and you got an ability for that. Either at the beginning of your upkeep or at the turn. It was different for each siege. This one isn't clan sieges or Khans. It is actually, it isn't dragons or Khans. It's actually clan sieges. So now the white-black one will be, is it Mardu or are you Abzan? Choose Abzan or Mardu for this. And it works within the shell of both of those clans. So I'm excited for the clan sieges. And then the product lineup kicked off. And I'm going to have a little bit of an issue with this one. Play boosters, obviously. Collector's boosters, definitely. I'm hyped for the pre-release of this set. I'm going to play as many pre-releases as I can. Why? Because the pre-releases are of each clan. Okay, so you can choose Abzan or Mardu or Sultai. I want Clan Sultai. I want, and in your 6-packs or 5-packs, it might be 5, but I want to say 6. You'll, instead of getting the promo, just a single card, you're going to get a seeded pack of, say I want Clan Mardu, and I get my pre-release kit, I open it up, and I get the packs, and then there's the seeded pack of Mardu cards, just to get a good start towards that particular clan to see if I can actually make a deck like that. I love this because I know I want to get one of each for pre-release, but I'm a Mardu guy. That's what definitely I was Mardu in Tarkir last time, and I don't think that's going to change much. I'm going to be Mardu, but this is where, and obviously the bundles as well, this is where I understand, but I'm not happy with it. I get it. On flavor, it's a win. On set fatigue kicking in already, it's a big L. There's 5 precons, 1 for each clan. I know, it makes sense. I said it makes sense. It's a flavor win, but a product fatigue fail. And from what I've been able to see, what I was able to see on the pre-release panel, this panel, and what they said, each commander, each precon is going to have a clan leader and a spirit dragon that can be your commander. So kind of like how each commander deck has a backup commander, but this time it's a definitive clan leader and a spirit dragon that kind of almost do the same thing. Precons, Abzan armor, which I'm going to guess, these are all guesses, equipment. Jeskai Striker, which is Spellslinger, which is going to be a Spellslinger deck, I feel. It's going to deal with a lot of prowess and pumping your creatures up that way, because Jeskai is definitely known for prowess. Sultai Arisen is going to be Graveyard Shenanigans again, and obviously the card that was previewed. Mardu Surge is going to be a lot of surge effects, and I think they accidentally spoiled one of the mechanics with this, because Surge is a mechanic that they've renamed a couple of times and have different variants of. But what Surge is if a creature, like, for example, you can pay either 3 mana for the creature to come out or 2 mana for the creature to come out, as long as another creature was cast this turn. So that's what I think Surge is, and I think Mardu is going to be a very aggressive Surge-based deck where you're going to pump your whole team up by casting multiple creatures a turn. And then Teamer Roar. I got to say it like that so I can enunciate it. It's going to be Big Stompy. And then that was it for Dragonstorm. Tarkir Dragonstorm. The rest of the Final Fantasy previews start May 10th, so I was correct. The rest of the Final Fantasy previews, May 10th, I was correct. We're going to go radio silent for a bit, about a month and a half, until we hear anything else involving Final Fantasy. But the following segment was filmed right before XWW's Love Hate Tragedy, sister company here at Max Heroes and Villains. And I need to say as well, the audio is a bit weird. I'll leave a timestamp, or I'll put it in the notes right here of when you can skip to. I was testing my new laptop and I was testing the new recording equipment, and I goofed and recorded in the wrong bit rate. So it sounds very... But here's the thing. It's sounding very... is going to accidentally get me around copyright claims because they were testing the speakers and the sound system and everything. So you can only hear me and not the music almost playing in the background.
Probably a bit. Sorry for the bad audio. We are currently at XWW Love Hate Tragedy setting up. I figured I'd get here a little bit earlier just to try to get this done and out of the way because I think it'd be kind of cool. Folks, we are testing audio, we are testing everything, and also I'm testing this new laptop for some, hopefully, podcast-related reasons, but mainly for another show that I do. But, that being said, I think this is going to be a fun little skit, if you will, the first bit of this week's Goblin Grenade podcast. And I don't really have a topic offhand because as of this moment, the world isn't setting on fire yet. That already happened with the scalpers and the Final Fantasy cards being bought out from Amazon. Folks, don't sweat it. Your LGSs are going to have them. Amazon's going to have a restock. Worst case, Walmart's will have this product as well. But preferably go to your LGS, and if they sell out, or if they're obviously upcharging the already ridiculous prices on it, go somewhere else that isn't. So, what got me back into Magic the Gathering 10 years ago, and as somebody I will stand, simp, ship, whatever the lexicon of the youth is using today. I'm an old man, 46 to be exact, and I got back into the game because of Tolarian Community College. I was wading my toe back in the Magic the Gathering waters, if you will, when his channel kind of started getting known. And he had done a $5 budget standard deck, which was a white-blue deck, and it was heroic. And that gave me enough of a, I'm doing this the wrong way. I went in like that I need to adjust and fix and actually have some fun. And this deck, for the next year and a half, gave me such a fun Magic the Gathering standard experience that I don't know if it wasn't for his video or his channel that I'd still be doing Magic the Gathering. This podcast might not exist. Dom Douglas might not be a commentator. Who knows what butterfly effect happens when I stopped playing Magic the Gathering 10 years ago because I wasn't having any fun. So big shout out. You don't even know who I am. You've never even encountered me before. I've never even commented on one of your videos because I'm a lurker. I think that's the lexicon used. I don't know. I watch. I don't interact. That's my bad. I got to start being a little bit better at that. You also might see people peering in the background or doing goofy things. I apologize for them in advance. Us wrestling folk are a weird crowd indeed. So that got me back into playing. Cost me $5, and over the course of the next year, I was able to upgrade that deck with the minimal prize winnings I was winning. It was a competitive deck, but it wasn't going to win me a lot of FNMs, if you will. It did win me a few. I did get in the top 3 or 4 sometimes, but I was able to at least build that deck back up to the point that I was actually having a lot of fun. I dove deep in Standard, dove deep into Draft and limited formats, and that's where like the ride kind of begins for me, because of Tolarian Community College doing that video. Because at that point, this is how badly out of the loop knowledge-wise I was. The first 3 packs I opened was Elsbeth, Sun's Champion, and a Polluted Mire, or I think, a Polluted Delta. One of the fetch lands. And I looked at this fetch land at the time, 10 years ago, and said, wow, that card sucks. Why am I going to pay 1 life to get a Plains or a Swamp? Why am I going to do that? That's how out of touch, out of loop I was when it came to Magic the Gathering. And it turns out in those 3 packs, and I think it was the RNG Gods or the first hit is free, my guy scenario, where I opened legitimately like really expensive cards at the time on my first 3 packs back in the Magic the Gathering, and then calling one of them a fetch land garbage because I had no basis of knowledge for that. And then I got heavily into Standard, played some Draft when the sets would come out, because the store I was playing at, drafts would happen the first week or 2 of the set to release, and then after that it was 2-3 months of Standard of that set. So I grinded like that, just playing FNM. I did dip my toe into the competitive scene by doing a regional qualifier, an RCQ, or an event to play to get into an RCQ. It was competitive rules. I'd never done a competitive rules REL event. I've never done a competitive event before, is what I was trying to say. And I got stomped. I went 0-3 before I realized that you're supposed to drop from the event when you go 0-2, or you lose 2 because you're not getting anything, my guy. But I didn't care. I was like, I spent $35 for this event. I'm playing all my games. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. That was the first and last time I ever played an event like that as well. I'm going to go to SCG Charlotte in a couple weeks as well, I hope, for at least a day. And my goal is to do the Commander package, not the CEDH, but just the Commander package, get the 4 tokens, get the playmat, get some cool swag, if you will, for doing that, and then just enjoy and have some fun. That is my plan, and none of these would be happening if Tolarian Community College had never done that $5 deck tech on Azorius Heroic all the way 8-9 something years ago at this point. I can't even say I had hair when I started playing Magic again, because that had flown the coop 10 years prior. When I started playing, it was down to my butt. But old man winter never waits for anybody. How I got into Commander is another interesting story that I should share, because it's what I play a lot of now. I was one of those people that did not like Commander. I made the running joke that card stores loses clients when they get into Commander. Standard loses players when they play Commander. Because once you play Commander, you never go back. You really don't. And I've bought 2 Standard decks over the last 2.5 years with the full intent of getting into Standard and playing exactly 0 games of Standard in that time. On paper, Arena's a different story, but I just had my hip replaced, so I was out for 6 to 8 weeks of recovery time. Alright, so what happened was, after my hip replacement, I was out for 6 to 8 weeks, just laying in bed, laying on the couch, barely being able to move, and I couldn't really interact with anybody, because I was also immunocompromised, because that's what happens. Your body is focusing more on building bone into the replacement, so it gets a nice, good fit, as opposed to fighting off a common cold. A common cold could take me out, like, for a few weeks if I got one, which was funny because the timing is late 2019 and the early 2020. We all know what happened in early 2020, don't we? So I was accidentally training myself for that. And also dealing with the recovery of my hip replacement. So I was just watching YouTube, and next thing I know, I watched the Game Nights episode, and another one, and another one, and another one, and I was really getting into the gameplay and the political aspects and the bargaining and how different of a game format that Commander was from what I was doing, grinding out Standard and grinding out Draft. It was different in a sense that it felt like a breath of fresh air, and I know it's a quote from somewhere describing somebody that I don't want to name, hearing Jimi Hendrix or vice versa, but it was like walking out of a smoke-filled room and getting that first breath of fresh air. And that's what Commander felt like to me, just watching other people play it. So I managed to be able to get my hands on the Anji Precon, and that's the first Commander deck I had. I'm never going to break it up, never going to let it down, never going to turn around and desert it, because that was the deck that got me playing into Commander, and now, 5 years later, the hip is still going strong. I got 10 years till I get it replaced. And, yes, I said replaced. If I live to the average life expectancy because of when I got my hip replaced, I'm due for this surgery 3 times in my life. Once every 15 years or so. And now look at me, I have 26 Commander decks, I play Draft all the time, I play Arena a bunch, I have the podcast where I do nothing but talk about nerd stuff, but mainly focusing on Magic the Gathering, to the point that I'm testing out my new laptop camera, my cell phone, and the mic that I record all the other ones with, that I just got a new mic stand for at home, here at the venue for XWW's Love, Hate, Tragedy, just so I can get this one part of a podcast done. So we're going to take it back to me in my room with the proper setup, but I have to say, future Dom that's editing this, in case you forget, the laptop camera, the laptop cell phone microphone combo, it slaps hard. It works really good. I might have to readjust the volume a little bit, but that's nothing a little post-production work can't fix.
Yes, so that I hope you liked what you saw. I hope you liked the segment. I want to do that a little bit more on this podcast when I get the opportunity to, and when I get the chance. I thought it was I think it's an interesting take, and especially with how I got started playing Magic the Gathering and Commander. So there we go. Now this is the Edge of Eternities. There was no cards previewed at all. There's a tentative date, I think, lined up, which is August 1st. And it's Magic in Space. And poor Mark Rosewater tried to say it was the first time Magic was in space, except for Infinity, Doctor Who, Warhammer 40K. Yeah, so this is the first mainline set that is non-Universes Beyond, that is based off of space. And they didn't even want to give any of the story or anything away, but I really feel that this is just something to deal with the Blind Eternities, which is the in-between spaces of the planes in Magic the Gathering. Every set is based off a plane of existence, and in between those planes, there's nothing for the most part. It's Blind Eternities. That's why it's called that. It's the Eldrazi apparently may have come from the Blind Eternities, or have come from Blind Eternities. I'm not entirely sure. I actually, over the last couple of years, stopped caring about the story to the point that I don't anymore. I used to, but now I don't. And the Omen Paths have been messing with. That's the only thing I can just think of. The Omen Paths have been messing with the Blind Eternities. And I only say that because it's called Edge of Eternities. The artwork is nice to look at. It's still looking like a little bit of a pass for me, because I'm just not into space adventures. Infinity was a joke set, and even then, it was part of the sets. And even then, I kind of didn't like Infinity a lot. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't think it was interesting. I thought, I just thought it was not good. I'm allowed to think that, though, because let's be real here. I'm still enamored with Foundations and Bloomburrow. Those are two of the most fantastic sets Wizards has come out with in a while. Bloomburrow is my favorite draft environment since Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I got there, folks. I got there. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was one of the best draft environments ever. And it's a real close second to Bloomburrow because Bloomburrow was really good. And I wish Bloomburrow and or Foundations, mainly Bloomburrow, would be available on MTG Arena all the time. But the antagonist for the set is Tezzeret, and that was all they said. The product line, though, they did give away the product line. And this is where, like, I was a little bit happy, but not really, because we're still... All right, I'm happy about it, and I'll tell you why. Play boosters, collector boosters, bundles, pre-release kit, 2 commander decks. The commander decks they revealed was World Shaper, which is black, red, and green, to sacrifice lands and grow stronger, I guess. You either put counters on things or your team gets pumped up. And then the second commander was Counterintelligence, which is red, white, and blue, which is boost artifacts and proliferate counters. So it's an artifact-based deck that has proliferate. So Blind Eternity's probably going to have proliferate, I think. At least in the commanders it will. And then this is when they dropped the Avatar bomb on everybody. Officially confirmed it, and even my notes to say, hey, look, I'm happy for y'all. It's not for me. Then the Here Be Dragons panel. I scrubbed through this. This was mainly D&D focused, but they did say there was going to be some Dragonstorm, Tarkir content involved. And that content was literally just a Stormscale Siren, which is for 4 and 2 red, a 4/4 flying dragon with other dragons you control get +1/+1. And this card has Storm. Storm is copy this card for every spell cast before this card. So if in total there was 8 spells cast in that turn, and then you cast Stormscale Scion, you're going to get 8 other copies of Stormscale Scion, and your dragons are going to get +1/+1, and you're going to have 8 of those on the field. And it says other dragons. Just to be clear, other dragons you control. And Editor Dom, if he gets around to it, will put the card up while we do that. Then they showed off the draconic frame of some of the cards and the Stormscale Scion. The draconic frame is so awesome looking. And it's funny because I absolutely don't like the Ghostfire variant, but I love the draconic variant. Like that artwork, that frame is amazing. And I hope every card, every dragon has that on there. They showed the Mox Jasper draconic frame, which looked amazing, I might add. So yeah, the draconic frame is, I think it's the frame that I'm going to be going after, and not so much the Ghostfire variant. I may set aside or trade the Ghostfire variants if I get them for draconic frames if I can. And then the final bit, not the final bit, the second to last bit, I'm going to talk about real quick. The bracket system had its beta, and not many people, I haven't heard much yet because I guess people are still processing some of it, but from what I heard, especially read online, yes, I do research from time to time on this, people have actually dug it. People have said it's actually it works better than it has any right doing. And it's flawed, but remember, it's in beta, so, you know, there's a couple cards that should be on the Game Changers list, and somebody had pointed out that Sensei's Divining Top should definitely be on the Game Changer list, and I couldn't agree more, because Sensei's Divining Top is an absolutely disastrous card for normal play. It is a 1-drop artifact, okay? And for 1 generic mana, any mana of any color, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. Then you can tap and draw a card, then put Sensei's Divining Top on top of its owner's library. Sensei's Divining Top is probably the best deck manipulator artifact made. And it can definitely cause long long turns just from constantly topping. So, yeah, but overall, so far, from what I've seen, and I've not seen anything negative about the bracket system yet. And even some people that I would expect to be negative about it haven't been at all, which was surprising. Because I really feel like between the implementation and the fact that it's such an easier conversation to have now, that I'm astounded that Wizards actually did something that worked pretty well. So good on you, Wizards. Hey, I'm surprised. I was surprised when the first few moments of that announcement happened, and I was like, uh-oh. And then I read it, and I was like, huh, it's actually really good. They actually did it. Good on you. And then finally, the last bit is Pro Tour Aether Drift. Now, Pro Tour Aether Drift was taking place also at MagicCon Chicago, and the first 2 days was drafting Aether Drift and standard Aether Drift. And they had 340 players, and the top 8 broke it down like this, shockingly. The decks in the top 8 were Gruul Leyline, Golgari Graveyard, Jeskai Oculus, Gruul Mice, Mono Red Aggro, and 3 copies of Domain Overlords. The eventual winner of Pro Tour Chicago Aether Drift was Matt Nass, and he has 2 previous top 8s. And I guess the third time's a charm, so congratulations to Matt Nass for winning Pro Tour Aether Drift with a Domain Overlords deck, which basically is playing Beza, Overload of the Mist Lords, Overload of the Hauntwoods, and Zur Internal Schemer, and just, yeah. It's the premier deck in standard right now. But here's the other thing. There was 6 decks that were all different, except for the 3 copies of Domain Lords. There was 5 other decks. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Yeah, 5 decks. 6 decks in the top 8. I talk a lot about standard and how I don't like it, but when I'm keep seeing results like this, I can't deny standard's probably been in the best place it's been in a decade. And it's healthy too. Very healthy. I might have been very wrong in the last 6 to 8 months about standard. And that's something I'm going to have to reevaluate. Because I've played no paper standard. I've been playing it on Arena. But when I see stuff like this, I'm like, all right, maybe standard's in a really good spot, and I've just been wrong. And that's part of being a well-adjusted adult human being, that you can basically admit mistakes. But that is going to end it here for the Goblin Grenade podcast on Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel. And if Editor Dom is around, he'll say hi right here. Sorry, Podcaster Dom. Editor Dom taking a day off. And yeah, that may or may not have been Editor Dom. If it didn't happen, that means I didn't edit this episode at all because I was just not feeling it. That being said, and yes, the voice is still recovering from the weekend. Love, Hate, Tragedy happened, and I blew it out. Not going to lie. And then I went to another wrestling show the day after and continued to yell with a blown out voice. And it's been 2 days of, yesterday was vocal rest to the point that I only talked for 20 something minutes yesterday. And that was when the girlfriend called. And my voice still sounds like this. But the show must go on here at the podcast. Max Heroes and Villains YouTube channel. Check us out. Matthews, North Carolina. My name is Dom Douglas, and may your top deck always be mythic.